What's good, YouTube? It's your boy Mekhi back in the building, you feel me? Now, today, we got something a little bit different. Today, we got the worst night in NBA history, Malice at the Palace. I decided that we should go ahead and look into this. It kind of goes into why the NBA is soft, why we were looking into that. So I think this is one of the reasons. So we're going to look and deep dive into this. Before we get into it, make sure you guys like, comment, and subscribe. Recommend to me any videos that you guys want me to see in the future. And let's go ahead and get into it.
November 19th, 2004 will forever be remembered as one of, if not the worst, moments in NBA history. The Malice at the Palace would put a black mark on the National Basketball Association that would take years to recover from. It would forever change the careers of Ron Artest, Steven Jackson, Jermaine O'Neal, and it would change the Indiana Pacers from a contender to a team that would spend close to a decade searching for an identity. But before the fight, before the Throne Cup, before Artest laid himself down on the table, November 19th, 2004 was just a regular season basketball game. A game that would feature two teams who were very much in contention to win the NBA championship. The Detroit Pistons entered the 2005 NBA season as defending NBA champions. The year before, they had beaten a star-studded Los Angeles Lakers team led by four.
The crazy thing about this, before we get into that, the crazy thing about that is that I was watching it was the Shannon Sharp interviews or whatever, and he was interviewing Ron Artest, and he asked him about the Malice at the Palace, and he was talking about, he said that the year before, they had a chance at going to the finals, and he had a flagrant foul on Rip Hamilton. Rip Hamilton hit the free throws, and they ended up winning what I think it was the playoffs, but he said they ended up winning the series, and they went to the finals. So he said that from that point on, he was trying not to be that person anymore because he realizes, like, I want to win a title. Like, I don't, you know what I'm saying? Because Ron Artest was a force to be reckoned with at his time. You know what I mean, man?
Hall of Famers in a victory that would prove to be monumental in terms of NBA history. The Pistons, led by Chauncey Billups, Rip Hamilton, Tayshaun Prince, Rasheed Wallace, and Ben Wallace, are the only team in NBA history to win a championship without a player who was ever a member of the first team All-NBA. They were a team without a star, and they beat a team full of stars. A true reminder that basketball is just that, a team game. And while everyone remembers the 2004 NBA championship win against the Lakers, they often forget the 2004 Eastern Conference Finals against the Pacers.
Okay, so basically, this is what I was talking about.
Under coach Rick Carlisle, had finished the 2004 season with the best record in the NBA, winning 61 games with a combination of talent and a rough defensive play style. The regular season matchups between the Pacers and the Pistons were knockout affairs, filled with bad blood, and there was certainly no love lost in their 2004 Eastern Conference Finals matchup. The series was physical, competitive, and featured a signature moment that would foreshadow the future events to come. With 4 minutes left and the score tied in what would be the deciding Game 6, Ron Artest hit Rip Hamilton with an elbow to the face. This foul was determined to be flagrant, and it would not soon be forgotten. Ron Artest's flagrant foul would later be considered the most important play in the game, because the foul lit a fire in the Detroit Pistons, which led to them gaining momentum and ultimately the win, which meant the Pacers went home without a chance to defend their home court on Game 7. But still, they believed they were the better team and were determined to prove themselves to the world. And
So he basically explained what I was talking about and what I saw in the interview. So I'm glad that he brought that up.
In the young 2005 NBA season, the Pacers had begun to build their case that they were the better team. Led by Ron Artest and their new addition Steven Jackson, the Pacers began the season with a 6-2 record, taking a lead in the standings over the Pistons at 4-3. Artest in particular had begun to play at a superstar level. Already known as one of the best defenders in the league, Artest had also begun to significantly raise his offensive level of play. In the 2004 season, he averaged 18 points per game, was the defensive player of the year, was an all-star, and was named All-NBA third team. In his first 6 games of the 2005 season, Artest was averaging close to 25 points a game to go along with 6 rebounds, 3 assists, and the best defense in the league. This was going to be the season where he took the leap, where his name would rise into the discussion of the best players in the NBA. And then his temper got the best of him. Which brings us to November 19th, 2004, otherwise known as the Malice at the Palace. At the time, this just looked like another regular season marquee matchup between two premier teams. This game was on national television, it had star power, it had the defending champs playing a team that desperately wanted to beat them. This game should have been one of the great moments to remember in the 2005 season. But as we already have seen with the bad blood between these two teams, the seeds had been planted for an absolute disaster. But at first, this game did not.
Well, hold on. Before we get to that, that team was supposed to go to the finals. Like the Indiana Pacers, they were supposed to at least go to the finals. I don't know about winning the chip, but after this happened, after what you're about to see, you know, their careers went completely different after this because of this moment. Just go ahead and watch.
Like a disaster for the Pacers. In fact, it seemed like the complete opposite. With just 57 seconds left in the game, Steven Jackson knocked down 2 free throws, giving Indiana a 15-point lead over the defending champions. The Pacers had dominated the Pistons on their home court, sending a message to the NBA that there was a new top dog in town. But throughout the game, there were clear signs that this was not a friendly matchup on both sides. With around 7 minutes left, Rip Hamilton elbowed Jamal Tinsley in the back in what looked like a flagrant foul, sending the Pacers bench into an uproar. Then, with a minute in the half left, Wallace knocked Ron Artest into the basket support.
Wait. I need to go back because I didn't know that this is what really started that. I thought it was the foul that Ron Artest had on Ben Wallace.
Tinsley in the back in what looked like
that's a little dirty. It's a little dirty.
Flagrant foul, sending the Pacers bench into an uproar. Then, with a minute in the half left, Wallace knocked Ron Artest into the basket support after a block, adding more fuel to the fire.
Okay.
Fire that would eventually lead to this. With under a minute remaining, Ben Wallace caught a pass in the post, turned, and put up a layup in traffic. He was fouled by Artest. It was a hard foul, nothing more. But at this stage in the game, with the outcome decided, Ben Wallace saw this foul as unnecessary. And so, his
Okay, so I want to show y'all something right quick. So let's go back to when that
under
happened.
A minute remaining, Ben Wallace caught a pass in the post, turned.
So he fouled him, right? I want you to look at, I know you can't see it because it's not clear, but I want you to look at Ron Artest.
Put up a layup in traffic.
Look at his hand. Look at his hand. Did you see his hand? Did you see his hand? Hold on. I need y'all to see his hand again. I need y'all to look at this in slow motion because I really want to show y'all something right quick.
Under a minute remaining, Ben Wallace caught a pass in the post, turned, and put up a layup in traffic.
You see how he put his hand up a little bit? That was because when I saw in the interview, he said that even if you look at the clip, when he did the foul, he was getting ready to like, yo, my bad. Are you good? But Ben Wallace already had this fuel in the fire and he already hauled off at him. So he didn't even get a chance to even be like, yo, my bad.
He was fouled by Ron Artest. It was a hard foul, nothing more. But at this stage in the game, with the outcome decided, Ben Wallace saw this foul as unnecessary. And so, his emotions got the best of him. Wallace hit Artest with a hard shove, which immediately led to a near brawl. Both teams emptied their benches in an attempt to separate the two players. And at first, their efforts seemed to be successful. But in an effort to calm down an enraged Ben Wallace, no one paid attention to Ron Artest. In what can only be considered a strange decision, Artest removed himself from the situation by laying down on the scorer's table. He was
So he said that
showered down with a collection of booze.
Okay, so the reason why he did that was because he was meditating. He said that before that happened, he was already working on himself, trying to get better and things of that nature. So when that happened, he went onto the table to wait till things died down and he wanted to meditate. That's why he was on the table.
Pistons fans. This was no problem to Ron though. He was a pro, he was used to getting booed. What he was not used to was getting a cup of beer thrown onto his face. It would come from a
Now that right there, that was a completely different thing. Like at that point, I don't care who you are, bro. If you're getting a cup of beer thrown at your face, you're gonna be mad. You know what I mean? You're gonna be mad.
Pistons fan named John Green. Amidst the commotion of a near brawl between two of the best teams in the NBA, Green lobbed a cup of beer in the direction of Ron Artest. His throw was a direct hit, spilling ice and beer all over Artest's chest and face. Immediately, he sprang to action, ready to punish the man responsible. Seeing this, Pacers radio play-by-play man Mark Boyle attempted to stop him, but Artest was 6'7", 250 pounds of pure muscle. He trampled over Boyle, fracturing 5 of Boyle's vertebrae in his attempts to get into the stands. And in an attempt to back up his teammate, Steven Jackson followed. The two players were in the area of the thrown cup in an instant, but in the
this man wasted no time. Got the cup hit in his face. He said, "Oh, that's it. I see red."
Artest grabbed the wrong fan, a man named Michael Ryan, and threw him to the ground. Artest rocked Ryan back and forth, screaming at him, "Did you do it?" as Ryan tried desperately to tell him that he had made a mistake. As this happened, John Green, the man who actually threw the cup, attempted to put Ron Artest in a headlock. This led to another fan throwing a cup of beer at Artest at close range, spraying beer all over Steven Jackson. Jackson responded to this by throwing a haymaker at the fan who threw the beer's head, and then continued to try to punch him as several players, fans, and security tried to defuse the situation. This mayhem unraveled to a live national television audience, with Bill Walton putting everyone's thoughts into words, saying simply, "This is a disgrace." Finally, a combination of people grabbed Artest, leading him down to the court. And while the situation in the stands was clearly an issue, things were no better on the actual court. It was so chaotic, in fact, that 2 Pistons fans made their way onto the court to approach Artest. AJ Shackelford and Charlie Haddad got in Artest's way as he was led to the Pacers locker room. Almost instantly, a screaming Shackelford was punched by Artest in the face. The punch immediately knocked him down, and he brought his friend Haddad down with him. What happened next almost brought this horrible situation to an even worse level. Walking near Artest, Jermaine O'Neal saw the 2 fans and decided to take action. O'Neal attempted to land a running knockout punch directly on Haddad's face, but slipped in his attempted action. And thank God he did, because if this punch...
I'm sorry. I'm losing focus, man. I'm sorry. This is getting bad. Now, okay, I want to go back to the original thing that I was gonna ask. In the very beginning, when the beer was thrown, I want to know what you guys would have done in that situation. Like, knowing you, what would you have done if somebody threw a beer in your face? And then I want to ask, what would be the right thing to do in that situation if you were Ron Artest? What would be the right thing to do? Those are 2 questions that I have, because I would be mad too, and I'm gonna go confront that man too. I'm gonna confront him too, but I don't think I would have hauled off on him. But I'm definitely confronting that man, and I'm definitely gonna find a way to get him removed from the stadium. Point blank, period. But I want to know what you guys would. What would you guys do?
Landed, it would have caused serious, potentially life-threatening damage. Luckily for everyone involved, his punch was off the mark, just glancing the side of Haddad's face. This would be the last of the Pacers players' despicable actions of the night, but they still had to be led into the locker room. As they were practically carried into the tunnel, the Pistons fans continued to show no mercy to their enemies. Disgusted by the actions of the opposing team, the fans continued to rain down cups of beer on the Pacers players and staff, with Mike Breen saying, "What a disgraceful sign by the Pistons fans here." It was clear that this was a dangerous situation for all involved, with Rick Carlisle later saying, "I felt like I was fighting for my life out there." Finally, things calmed down, and the players made it into the locker room without further incident. But it was clear that several players' reprehensible actions needed to be dealt with, and the aftermath of the Malice at the Palace would alter the course of NBA history forever. The very next day, David Stern released a statement saying, "The events at last night's game were shocking, repulsive, and inexcusable." He would go on to promise an investigation and made it clear that the punishments would be severe, and they were. Ron Artest was suspended for the remainder of the NBA NBA season without pay. He would take the biggest financial hit of all involved, losing over $5 million. And to this day, his 86-game suspension, which includes playoff games, is the longest non-drug related suspension in NBA history. As for the other players, Steven Jackson received a 30-game suspension. Jermaine O'Neal got 15 games, and Ben Wallace was suspended for 6 games. Several other players were also suspended in the aftermath, and the situation was serious enough to be taken to court. The players in the incident got off with only fines and community service agreements, while John Green was charged with 30 days of jail time for throwing the cup that started this all. And while all of this was clearly bigger than basketball, the Malice at the Palace did have a huge impact on the NBA and the Pacers as a whole. Remember, after November 19th, the Pacers now stood at 7-2. They had just convincingly beat their biggest rival and shown the world that they were the best team in the Eastern Conference this season. But now with their star player suspended for the whole year, their title hopes were ruined. Indiana would go on to have a decent season, but again were knocked out of the playoffs by Detroit, creating a finals matchup between the Pistons and the Spurs that may never have happened if Ron Artest did not go into those stands. And speaking of Ron Artest, his career would never be the same. The next season, he demanded a trade and ended up on the Sacramento Kings. In Sacramento, Artest was solid, but he never quite reached the superstar level that it looked like he was headed for in Indiana, which raises a great NBA what if. How good would Ron Artest have been if he could just control his temper? And as for the Pacers, the loss of Artest led to a severe drop of talent in their overall franchise. Their team had lost not only their best player, but their heart and their soul, and it showed, as Indiana would not become a serious championship contender again until 2013. And thank you for watching, guys. I hope you like.
Listen, man, I don't even blame Ron Artest for that. Like, what do you mean if he could control his temper, bro? Like, Martin Luther King, for an example, Martin Luther King was very, very big on peace and equality and you know, non-violent and stuff like that. But you know he drew the line somewhere. Like he drew the line somewhere. That's what I'm saying for Ron Artest. Like, okay, yeah, he can control his temper, but at a certain point, it's too far. You threw a cup of beer with ice in someone's face. Like I don't understand the logic here. You threw a cup of beer with ice in someone's face and you expect him not to react? Okay. Well, and then I had saw this video saying that Isaiah Thomas, I think he was I don't know if he was the coach. I think he was the coach. He was the coach for the Pacers for a little bit of time. And for some reason, he wasn't the coach anymore. And he was like, oh, if I was out on the floor and I was still the coach at that time, my guys wouldn't even be out on the floor at that moment in time. My guys wouldn't be doing that. They wouldn't be behaving like that. The coach at the time didn't know his guys. You know how Isaiah Thomas is, just a hater. Just a hater. And I just want to know what you guys think about this, man. What would you do in this situation? And what would be the right thing to do in this situation? That's what I want to know from you guys in the comment section. And until next time, man, I'm going to catch y'all.